Hello. Today's podcast is about customer experience. Is that the hidden driven for growth? We're here together with my colleague Stephen Hodson. Stephen is associate consultant with Noventum Service Management Consultants, and I'm Hilbrand Rustema, the managing director. So today's podcast is about customer experience management as a driver of growth and how digitalization of key service transactions across the customer journey can improve the customer experience. So, Stephen, good day. Not sure if it's morning or afternoon for you. Stephen, before we discuss and dive any deeper, can you help us understand and frame what is meant by customer experience and customer journeys?
Yes, good day, Hilbrand. Delighted to be here because I'm very passionate about customer experience as a service leader. So it's first and foremost of my mind when I wake up each day. Firstly, really, customer experience and customer satisfaction, they're the fundamental pillars of business and service success, I think, for us all. They drive customer loyalty, they help boost revenue, drive growth, and they can reduce our costs. They also create differentiation, a competitive advantage, and helps with employee satisfaction. Our service engineers and specialists are happier when customers are more positive about our businesses. It also fosters a culture, really, of continuous improvement in the business, in the service business for our customers. So overall, really, I see customer experience as the guiding North Star for our service businesses and really essential for organizations' long-term growth and sustainability. If we talk about the customer journey, then the customer journey is which is shown here on a graphic, is shown as the sum of interactions that a customer goes through when they receive a service from the customer. So it starts really at the service pre-installation phase. It goes through the acquisition, proposal, negotiations, delivery, and installation, implementation of the equipment. Then the whole experience around the customer contact center and in-field service, then service reporting, and then finally, to end that cycle, I guess, service renewal acquisition when you renew your business with that customer. So this is a type of typical journey a customer would go through in the business. And there's multiple touch points in each one of those stages, let's say, of that journey. We do something called customer journey mapping, and we map and create a visual representation of that customer experience. And that really helps tell the story from the customer's perspective. And you do this together with the customer and with your service team, your service leaders, to understand the customer's perspective, their pain points, and most importantly, the gain points, where they get value from that interaction with you. And then also how they feel and perceive value at each touch point and how you reinforce the brand. So touch points can be personal touch points, digital touch points, or a hybrid of the two together. And the goal is to create a unique signature experience at each touch point. Here there's a graphic of the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican in Rome. And if you look up on the ceiling, you'll see the two fingers touching, which is a very personal touch point, the creation of man with Adam. So that's the personal touch point. And I think the key really is the personalize the exceptional. So where you can have a big impact and have big customer gains, or where the customer really perceives value and you can enhance the brand, that's where you want to create a unique personal touch point and experience for the customer. Then what we're discussing today more increasingly is the digital touch point. And this really we should digitize and automate when there's a more mundane or routine touch point, and it doesn't bring so much personal value to the customer. But hugely important for our business and for the customer, because we can bring a lot of value to the customer, and we can also improve the overall service operating efficiency and operating effectiveness with a digital touch point. And the key is balancing two together, how to get the right amount of digital and the right amount of personal touch points.
Thank you, Stephen. That's a very good overview of the topic of customer experience management. Can you explain a little bit what are the benefits and the impact of improving the customer journey and the customer experience?
Yes, certainly. We've researched this topic at depth with a number of service leaders at the end of last year, in fact. And our research shows that 90% of service businesses that map their customer journeys saw an increase and a positive trend in their customer experience ratings, a massive 90%. And to contrast that, 60% of organizations that didn't map their customer journey or measure their customer experience or have a customer experience program in place, they saw flat or declining customer experience ratings. So that's really a huge value and impact, I would say. Also, we were quite surprised in the research to see that just over a third of service organizations have not implemented any customer experience management scheme or measurement scheme, such as NPS, CSAT, customer effort scores, and the others. Yeah, more than a third have not mapped that. And similarly, the same number, about a third of service organizations and businesses have not mapped their customer's journey, and they don't have a customer experience program in place. So I think, being able to improve customer experience ratings by mapping the customer journey and by measuring customer experience will have a huge impact. And some of those impacts, firstly, would be on helping to drive growth in your business. It gives you pricing power when you want to either renew and retain your prices at existing levels, or you want to increase your price. If the customers are happy, you're more likely to be able to capture that price. It helps reduce customer churn, which is hugely important, losing customers. So it increases customer retention, helps increase share of wallet, and you get greater customer lifetime value. Finally, it helps reduce risk. So a happy customer is more likely to work with you and forgive you when there are tough times, which there will be. I think we've all encountered that in our service businesses where we can't deliver, we let the customer down, the equipment's down for a number of days, we break our service commitment and our contract. Customers will be more forgiving if they're happier. So those are the growth parameters. And then in terms of improvements in the service business operationally, firstly, engineers and service team are far happier and more content and will improve their retention if customers are happy. So a happy customer typically means a happy service team. And if they're happier, they're more motivated, they stay longer, and you reduce turnover in your service team. And then, of course, it helps with all the metrics. Service digitalization and improving customer experience helps improve the productivity, reducing travel times, improving resolution rates, first-time fix rates, and you can reduce low-value back office and service activities. So huge benefits from that. And our research shows that, Noventum research shows that a 5 to 10 point improvement in customer experience metrics really drives double-digit sustainable sales revenue growth. So very tangible, real benefits of customer experience programs and service digitalization.
Digital is going to change a lot in the customer journey. What are the highest impact and priority areas to digitize to improve customer experience?
That's a really good question, where to focus on to improve in terms of service digital. Again, we did a number of research on this. And the biggest area is in implementing more digital services in terms of predictive, proactive, prescriptive type services. This is the biggest priority for service organizations, and that brings the biggest value to the business and also to customers. It's hugely valuable for them if they receive an email or a text message saying, we see your equipment is not feeling well. We're going to schedule a planned service intervention in the next couple of weeks before your equipment fails, in the same way as the aviation industry does. So that's hugely valuable pivot towards more digital services, predictive, proactive, prescriptive, and these are what we call high efficiency service models. So huge value there, investing in those, helping with what the customer really wants is to reduce their unplanned downtime. They want uptime, and if they are having downtime, they want it planned. They don't want surprises. They don't want to be changing an engine on an aircraft halfway across the Atlantic, to use the aerospace analogy. But in all our businesses, it's the same. Customers don't want surprises. So digital services, number one. The second one is implementing more digital automation into the service delivery model. So the way in which we deliver service to customers, be it in the planning, the dispatching, the scheduling, the maintenance planning, and how we approach that. And thirdly, interestingly enough, is data quality. So cleaning up the data quality from the customer master file. I've worked in service organizations where we've even dispatched engineers to the wrong customer, to the wrong piece of equipment, because we had this wrong serial number and the wrong equipment, the wrong assay associated with that customer when we switched our ERP system. So data quality is hugely important. I think most service businesses struggle with the quality of data. So improving that is a big one. And then knowledge management tools, hugely important. And with the advent of AI as well, there's an opportunity there with knowledge management, both for the service teams and for customers. So enabling our service specialists through knowledge management, so they won't need so much deep, intense training, and they won't need to gain so much experience because the knowledge management system will guide them. And similarly for customers, enabling them through knowledge management in their customer portal. So these are some of the key areas that service organizations have told us they're prioritizing, and you'll see the biggest value both for the customer in terms of CX, but also in terms of your service business in terms of the productivity and effectiveness.
Stephen, do customers really want more digital in their service interactions?
That's a very interesting and somewhat provocative question, because we see two ends of the spectrum really, where we see research shows that 85% of organizations typically want to digitize to reduce costs, improve their efficiencies and productivities, and automate and digitalize. But at the same time, research shows that up to 90% of customers actually want more live interactions. So you've got the two ends of the spectrum around digital and around personalized interaction. So the challenge and really the opportunity for service businesses is in how to design and optimize the touch point to either digitalize it or personalize it, or do some type of hybrid to really bring value to the customer. And that's why the value of journey mapping, customer journey mapping, is so high, to establish together with the customer where they value a personal contact and where they value a digital contact. And we found our recommendation is, I mentioned previously, is digitalize the mundane, the routine, and automate the exceptional where you can make a difference. But what you can do is where customers do want a personal contact, but it's obviously more expensive than a digital one, is to start the journey with a digital contact, perhaps through a customer portal where the customer self-helps, they self-service, and then when that's completed and closed out, then you follow up with an email, with an SMS, with social media, or with a ping, or even with a telephone call, and you talk to the customer and ask them, did you find what you needed? Were you able to resolve that problem to your satisfaction? Can we help another way? So really you're just following up to ensure there's a successful outcome. And that's what the customer will remember. They'll remember that handshake you had at the end of the interaction they had, so they get the best of both worlds. They get a fast, efficient digital interaction, followed up with a personal handshake from your service business.
Now, business and service leaders know that customer experience and retention is important, yet most businesses still focus on investing firstly in new customer acquisition to grow the business. So what's the argument for focus and investment in customer experience, Stephen?
Well, firstly, I would say, the cost of acquiring, research shows from the Harvard Business Review, actually, the cost of acquiring a new customer is 5 to 25 times more than retaining an existing one. And I think we can all recognize that. Because you have to increase digital marketing, you need sales, you need interactions with new clients, you have to go through contracts and tenders and requests for proposal responses. You need to make site surveys, you need to negotiate, you need to compete, and you need to capture that customer, and that costs a huge amount of money and takes time. And even if you do win new business, then it will take several months or even years before you fully implement and before that customer's billing at the same pace as the customer you've lost. So customers typically leave quickly and new customers join much more slowly. So that's, you've got a 5 to 25 times more cost benefit there. And then also in NPS, our friend Frederick Reichhold in NPS research, and this is very well documented, is increasing customer retention rates by just 5%. So will increase profits by a minimum of 25% and even up to 90%. So, this is really a huge number. And it's even more important if you're in a heavy industry where customers have a very high lifetime value in capital equipment or high consumable based business. So it's important to know, I think, as part of this calculation is to understand your customer's lifetime value. And I'd recommend, service organizations calculate that to design, to understand what the value of the customer is. So then the goal is to reduce customer churn and calculate the customer lifetime value and invest in customer experience to retain them, because that's the best investment typically a business can make and a service organization can make.
And what are the barriers to gaining investment in customer experience service digitization initiatives? How can service organizations overcome them and secure that investment?
Yeah, barriers to service digitalization. Again, we did some research on this, and we found, I was quite surprised actually to see that 40% of the barriers were resulting from budgetary, financial constraints and lack of investment, and the ability to make a business case with a good return on investment and gain the commitment of the executives to invest in the service business and customer experiences. So, 41% of the barriers were the investment in the business. And what we found was it's really very enlightening for me when we looked and analyzed why weren't we getting investments in customer experience or in service digitalization. And the reason was really is that most organizations, and certainly the organizations and businesses I've worked with, I've typically focused really on service productivity, on efficiencies, on reducing spare parts usage, on improving headcount efficiency, reducing headcount, and improving service productivity overall as a cost-saving measure or as a profitability-saving measure. And we found actually that the best way, most success, is really focusing on what CEOs, what the C-suite are paid to do, what they're most interested in, and that's to grow the business and to grow it profitably. So rather than focusing on cost savings and productivity and efficiencies, that's a given. That's just doing our job. We don't get more money for doing that, and more investment. You're more likely to get more investment through growth-based strategies. So customer experience, there's a very strong case to show, it helps us with sales revenue growth, with increasing share of wallet, improving in pricing, customer lifetime value, customer churn rates. We can upsell, and it improves employee satisfaction. So big benefits from there. So that's what we'd recommend first and foremost, focus on growth drivers when presenting a business case. And secondly, this is the other key lever for the C-suite, is risk mitigation. Customer experience really acts as a safeguard against business risks. Good customer experience creates a huge amount of customer goodwill, when things go wrong, when there's back orders on your product delivery, supply chain issues, when there's issues with service. We can't get a service engineer there in time, or there's a delay, or there's spare parts, shortage of spare parts. All those things customers will forgive you for. Risk mitigation, risks to reputation and brand. If we have a poor customer experience, and also reduce or prevent some public complaints, social media criticism, legal actions even. So really good risk mitigation parameters. And then the third part of the business case should be the classic, which I've always focused on previously until I found this out, was cost and productivity, reducing cost of service, reducing low value activities, and improving the customer service metrics. That should be the third focus. So really, we're recommending a pivot to business cases focused on growth first and foremost, and secondly, risk mitigation, and then lastly, cost and productivity.
So as we conclude, Stephen, how would you summarize the key takeaways for service leaders to rethink their customer journey with digital and drive customer experience growth?
Yeah, I think wrapping it up really is, firstly, customers or companies need to understand what customers expect from them and what they value in their brand. What's unique about the organization, what differentiates them, where the customer's pain points and gain points. And that, to understand that, you need to talk to the customers and do that with a customer journey mapping to understand that. So you can create this unique signature brand experience. And you can only do that by understanding really what the customers want, expect, and value in that brand. Secondly is mapping the customer journey. We said previously, a third of all service organizations have not mapped their customer journey. So we recommend doing that, mapping the touch points, designing the touch points intentionally together with the customer, and then redesign the customer journey with high impact signature digital touch point experiences. And thirdly would be to strike the right balance between digitalization and personalization or hybridization. That balance needs to be set together with the customer so that you bring value to the customer and you bring value to the business. It's all too easy, and I've done this before myself in implementing a contact center, outsourcing that to a third party. It was purely digital, but the impact on customer experience was hugely negative. We went from positive NPS to negative NPS literally within days in the business because I over digitalized a touch point that a customer really wanted to have a human interaction with. And so we had to walk that one back quite quickly. So getting that balance right and designing it with your customers is critical. The fourth one is to design and implement a process to measure customer experience. Again, a third of service businesses didn't have a measurement tool in place to measure customer experience. I found that shocking. And then develop a customer experience management program intentionally and have the governance around that. It doesn't happen by chance. You have to have this as part of your strategic plan and a part of your roadmap to manage customer experience and to invest in it and to measure it and report back on success to reinforce that. And then lastly, where you do need to invest in customer experience and service digitalization, you need to create a compelling business case for the C-suite, and that should be focused primarily on growth, secondly, risk mitigation, and only thirdly, on the service efficiencies and productivity. So I'd say those are the 5 key takeaways in customer experience and service digitalization.
Well, very good. Thanks a lot, Stephen. I think it was a very good summary and overview of the complete topic of customer experience management, and particularly focus on digital. So concluding, I would say to focus on customer experience as a driver for growth for service businesses, they will first need to develop a customer experience strategy and a roadmap, which includes how to retain and create more value from the strategically important customers. So as a next step, in rethinking your customer journey, we invite you to complete a complimentary customer experience self-assessment for your organization. So this powerful tool will provide valuable insights and gives you some actionable next steps towards a more, let's say, customer-centric digital service business approach to drive growth. So you can find this assessment if you scan the QR code for those that are watching this on YouTube. And for those that are listening to this podcast, you can go straight to HTTPS column and then 2/stc.noventum.eu. And you can also go to noventum.eu and look on one of the news items, and you will find this assessment. So again, Stephen, thank you very much for this fantastic, though still short podcast. And I hope that listeners will really have a lot of benefit from it. Thank you.
Thank you, Johan. Good day and good luck on your customer experience journey.
Thank you.